Welcome back to Sovereign Moves. Today, we're diving deep into the latest global strategies. Remember to like and subscribe for more insights.
On April 17, 2026, the Constitution 131st Amendment Bill failed on the floor of the Lok Sabha. The marathon two-day debate ended with the lower house of parliament frozen in deadlock. The legislation aimed to reserve 33% of seats for women, but to understand why it collapsed, we have to look past the political speeches and examine the strict mathematical rules that govern the Indian Constitution. Under Article 368, amending the Constitution requires a special majority. This mechanism demands two specific conditions be met simultaneously: an absolute majority of the total membership of the House and a two-thirds majority of members who are present and voting. The first condition is straightforward. Out of the 540 total members in the Lok Sabha, the government needed a baseline threshold of 271 votes. The second condition introduces a variable. The bill must secure exactly two-thirds of the votes from the MPs who are physically seated in the chamber and casting a ballot. On Friday evening, exactly 528 members participated in the vote. The final tally registered 298 votes in favor and 230 votes opposed. Two-thirds of 528 is 352. With 298 votes in favor, the government cleared the absolute majority hurdle, but fell exactly 54 votes short of the required 352 vote threshold. Former Lok Sabha Speaker Sumitra Mahajan, who spent decades advocating for women's representation, watched the vote unfold from the visitors' gallery. The paradox of this defeat is that almost every member in the room publicly supports a women's quota. In fact, the theoretical framework, reserving 33% of seats for women, was already unanimously passed by Parliament in the 2023 Nari Shakti Vandan Adhiniyam. Ultimately, the 131st Amendment crashed into the uncompromising arithmetic of constitutional procedure. To operationalize the quota, the government argued that implementing a 33% reservation within the current Lok Sabha structure would force sitting MPs to surrender their constituencies to female-only mandates. Their solution was expansion. By increasing the Lok Sabha from 543 seats to 816, the government could create new, dedicated seats for women without displacing incumbent male politicians. The opposition rejected this approach. Leaders like Rahul Gandhi argued against inflating the chamber. They demanded the government carve out exactly 181 female seats from the existing 543-member capacity immediately, bypassing any need for structural expansion. The conflict between these models hinges entirely on delimitation, the redrawing of electoral boundaries based on population changes. By legally linking the women's reservation to an increase in total seats, the government made the quota entirely dependent on a brand new delimitation exercise. To draw those new boundaries, the proposed legislation relied on a specific dataset, the 2011 census. This 2011 demographic heat map illustrates the problem, showing intense density growth in northern states versus population stabilization in the south. Applying this to an 816-seat Lok Sabha triggers a massive transfer of representation. Power consolidates in the north, permanently diluting the south's political leverage. By tethering gender quotas to a boundary redraw, the Delimitation Trap engineered a zero-sum conflict. It forced lawmakers to choose between advancing female representation and protecting their region's political survival. The government's push for delimitation stems from a severe demographic distortion that exists regardless of the women's quota. India's current electoral boundaries are based on population figures from 1971. The map has been artificially frozen for over 5 decades. Fast forward to the year 2026, and that half-century freeze has created immense structural pressure on the democratic architecture. This Bengal constituency is an extreme outlier. Due to unchecked population growth, its single elected member now represents 4.8 million citizens. Compared to much smaller southern constituencies, this frozen map explicitly violates the democratic axiom of one person, one vote. Recognizing the bill was doomed by Southern resistance, the government attempted a desperate maneuver to solve the crisis. Union Home Minister Amit Shah intervened directly on the Lok Sabha floor, asking the opposition for 1 hour to draft a compromise. He offered a verbal guarantee. The new bill would mandate a uniform 50% pro rata increase in seats across every single state, preserving the exact ratio of regional power currently in place. The opposition dismissed the overture. A verbal assurance carries no legal weight. Article 368 requires specific, codified written text. The absence of a pro rata guarantee in the physical bill itself created an insurmountable constitutional deadlock. The collapse of the 1971 freeze forces the Indian polity into a mathematical corner. There is currently no consensus on how to balance equal individual representation with equal regional power. The moment the 131st Amendment failed to reach 352 votes, a legislative domino effect began. Parliamentary Affairs Minister Kiran Rijiju immediately requested that the intricately linked Union Territories Laws Amendment Bill 2026 be withdrawn. The Delimitation Bill 2026 was pulled alongside it. Without the core amendment, the supporting legislation had no foundation. In the aftermath, both sides began maneuvering to control the narrative. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the ruling NDA framed the defeat as an explicit betrayal. They positioned the opposition as anti-reform, arguing they actively dismantled a historic opportunity for women's rights. The India bloc countered immediately, targeting the structure of the legislation itself. Opposition leaders classified the amendment as a Trojan horse, an unconstitutional power grab designed to permanently alter electoral boundaries, cloaked in the universally popular rhetoric of gender equity. With the primary legislation dead, analysts and policymakers are looking at alternative frameworks to implement the quota without triggering the delimitation trap. Former Chief Election Commissioner S.Y. Qureshi proposed bypassing redrawn boundaries entirely. His model suggests adding 272 new seats directly to the existing Lok Sabha structure and restricting those new seats exclusively to female representatives. Without an agreement on the boundaries or chamber size, the electoral map for the 2029 general elections remains in a precarious limbo. Following the withdrawal of the linked bills, the special parliamentary session was abruptly concluded. The Speaker adjourned the Lok Sabha sine die, a procedural term meaning the House was dismissed with no assigned date for it to reconvene. The 2029 electoral map remains in suspended animation, a consequence of the reality that fundamental electoral reform hinges entirely on political consensus.